US billionaires have a new goal. Look, the one thing that nearly every American can agree on is that US healthcare has major problems. The US is simultaneously the most expensive and worst performing wealthy country when you look at almost every healthcare metric. As an industry, US medicine is now worth $5.3 trillion, which is the nice way of saying that it's taking everybody's money. But its systemic failures have created massive business opportunities for tech billionaires like Mark Cuban, Jeff Bezos, Larry Ellison, and Marc Benioff. All of them got seriously involved with US medicine following COVID-19, which I found odd. So to figure out their motivations for getting in this industry, I researched everything they're doing in US medicine and nearly everything that they've publicly said about it. Let's get into the what before the why. To understand the rationale for these billionaires, you can't think of their healthcare moves as conventionally strategic business investments. It's not like Mark Cuban buying a growing professional sports team after he made his money in tech. His Mavs investment made him $3.2 billion richer over those 24 years that he owned them. And it's not like Larry Ellison investing in NetSuite following the growth of his bread and butter Oracle. That investment made him $3.7 billion richer. Healthcare is arguably the United States' most slow-moving and technology-resistant industry. And tons of billion-dollar companies have absolutely swung and terribly missed when it comes to their investments to improve US medicine. Despite these previous failures, each one of these billionaires has been very strategic about picking a weakness within the system, some behind the scenes, and then addressing it. Here's what they've done so far. Jeff Bezos, formerly your typical chat room moderator lookalike turned modern day Chad, worth over $200 billion, went after access to medicine. Behind US medicine's biggest problem, costs, another big issue is convenience. Right now, the average wait time to see a new doctor is 31 days. And many end up using emergency rooms for problems that really should have been handled earlier, which ends up increasing everybody's insurance costs. But taking into account how inconvenient it is to be a customer in US medicine, and Bezos' literal obsession with customers.
Customer obsession.
Obsessively enough on customer experience.
Obsessive, compulsive focus on the customer.
Amazon purchased One Medical for $3.9 billion in 2022. One Medical is a bunch of primary care clinics that has a $200 yearly subscription that people can buy if they have Prime. It's basically a hybrid between a regular doctor's office and what really wealthy people do for medical care. It's sold to members as a service that lets you see a primary care doctor anytime you want online, with very low wait times for in-person visits as well. Amazon paired this with Amazon Pharmacy and a subscription service called RX Pass. So for $5 a month, Prime members get a bunch of prescriptions delivered like anything else on Prime. Larry Ellison, also worth over $200 billion, has focused on something in US medicine that's more behind the scenes, but potentially more lucrative. When you go to your doctors and you tell them about your illness or whatever's going on, the notes that they or their AI note takers write aren't being input in a way that helps the doctor or you in the future. Instead, they're written in a way that's designed to make sure that insurance actually pays the hospital for that doctor visit. Basically, your health isn't the priority. So in 2022, Oracle bought an electronic health record company called Cerner. They maintain the system where those doctors' notes end up. Oracle actually spent $28 billion to acquire them, and Ellison and Oracle are now rebuilding the Cerner system to make it easier for doctors and nurses to use. The system will include voice commands so clinicians can pull records or enter notes just by talking. Then in the future, when you return to the doctors, they don't have to spend 15 minutes going through the different systems looking for previous x-rays or lab results. They can just talk to the system and pull up whatever they need in the moment, which actually helps you and the doctor. Marc Benioff, worth a little bit less than $10 billion, went after another behind-the-scenes medicine disaster, the paperwork tax. The big secret in US healthcare is that you actually pay for a lot more than just medicine. Since the 1970s, the number of doctors in America has grown by about 200%, but the number of healthcare managers and administrators has exploded by over 3,000%. There are now roughly 10 administrators for every one doctor. As a result, doctors now spend 15 plus hours a week just doing paperwork, answering emails, and fighting with administrators from insurance companies and everywhere else. And that's a lot of time that they're not spending with their patients. So Benioff's company Salesforce launched Agentforce, a system of AI agents. So these AI agents will help administrators handle some of the grunt work, like checking insurance, scheduling appointments, or even reading lab results to flag problems before a doctor sees them. Mark Cuban, worth over $5 billion, attacked drug prices. Americans pay more for drugs than any other country. For an inhaler medication called a Neuroellipta, the US government found that Americans were charged $248 for a 30-day supply. That exact same medication, that exact same supply costs $76 in Canada, $64 in Australia, and $49 in France. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that there are only two groups of people between the drug maker and the patient in those other countries. The US has more than triple that amount. Because there's so many middlemen in this system, everybody takes a little bit off the top. And perhaps the greatest offender is known as the pharmacy benefit manager, or PBM. So originally these guys were supposed to negotiate down drug prices from the drug maker to the insurance company and employers and everybody else involved in the situation. and they would get what's called a rebate or some money back for their efforts. The problem was, however, many realized if the drug prices were higher, then they could end up getting more money off the top. So Mark Cuban started a company called Cost Plus Drugs. It essentially bypasses, at least partially, those pharmacy middlemen from the equation and sells generic medications directly to patients and companies online. Unlike the literally secret middleman deals, Cuban's company uses a straightforward and publicly visible formula to come up with drug prices. Manufacturing costs plus a 15% markup plus pharmacy and shipping fees. That means a drug that might cost $100 at a pharmacy can drop down to $10 or $15 on Cost Plus Drugs. But it should be said it's not a profitable company at this point and has lost him considerable money. Furthermore, the margins are pretty thin, so it's probably not going to be a multi-billion-dollar company. So why is Mark Cuban and these other 3 billionaires getting involved in US healthcare? Look, these 4 tech billionaires, Cuban, Bezos, Ellison, and Benioff, have more money than any of us could ever spend. They don't need more money. Bezos and Ellison could literally buy every single NBA team combined and still not need to change their daily spending habits. So if they're not getting into healthcare because it's a $5.3 trillion industry, then why are they getting involved? Some people would say it's philanthropy. By my most conservative estimates, these 4 have donated over $5 billion combined to charity. But if it's charity, then why start with a $1 billion acquisition and subscription model rather than funding hospitals or vaccines? And why be so involved in solving specific healthcare issues? Others might say that billionaires just can't turn off the switch. They can't stop working. And there's probably some truth to that. All 4 of them have talked about luck playing a role in their success, but everything I've read about their work habits indicates that they have worked insane hours at different times in their lives. But that doesn't really answer why they would work on healthcare. I mean, none of them really seemed to care about healthcare before COVID-19. So after all my research, I think these 4 billionaires are in the space for one of 2 reasons, and both make sense if you think like them. Reason number 1, influence. Other than mass media or politics, healthcare is the one industry that affects literally every single American. It's not like business software delivering some arbitrary product to some people's houses. When somebody makes a meaningful change or improvement in healthcare, it can affect everybody. That means unprecedented reach and power, which no matter how much somebody gets of those 2 things, it's never enough. Reason number 2, public favor. Billionaires lack for relatively nothing, apart from maybe interpersonal relationships if you believe what people say about money complicating things. However, there is one thing that most of these guys clearly lack. Public favor. Being a billionaire in the modern day is wildly unpopular, with whole online groups arguing that they shouldn't even exist. But fixing the one thing that Americans hate even more than billionaires, our healthcare system, is the ultimate PR move. I think it's a pretty good way to transform from corporate villain to national hero. But ultimately, whether it's for influence or favor, the result is the same. The $5.3 trillion healthcare industry is being taken over by the world's wealthiest men. We'll just have to see if it ends up in a better place than it is now. If you found this video interesting and you'd like to see more like it in the future, please consider subscribing for more. This is Tyler Dutchover. Thanks for watching.